Yes. Either way, Gerardo in Spanish. Either way is fine with me. Yeah, that's how I grew up. I grew up in San Diego, so I grew up saying Gerardo to my friends as well. It was easier for them. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I mean that's the real way of saying it, of course. I'm doing great. Excellent. Yes. Yeah, I did. I did. My relationship with mushrooms go back a long ways, actually. I've had a pretty exciting life, and talk about mushrooms from different facets of my life. But what my book is currently about is my recent exploration into mushrooms. After those initial experiences back in my 20s, I stopped using them because I was living in Europe at the time and they were accessible over there. And I moved back to the US and they, of course, are illegal and not accessible. So I stopped using them. So there was a big 15-year period where I didn't use them. Um, that led to the dark place that I was in recently, about 4 or 5 years ago. That was sparked by a divorce, by my dad's death, by some health issues, and really just life stuff that happens. But it really sunk me because it all happened at the same time, about the same month. I got divorced and my dad died, and a lot of things happened. So I was in a dark place and I couldn't get out of it. I hadn't really touched psychedelics for over 15 years, so they weren't on my mind. And to make a very long story short, I ate mushrooms one day with my brother, and they immediately lifted me out of that depression that I couldn't get out of. And this happened in a matter of hours. Yeah. Whew. That's a good question. That's a good question. Um, well, what's the experience like? Um, I've done mushrooms, but by now I've done them probably several hundred times in my life. Yeah, at least 300 to 500 times. Every single journey is different. There's never been two journeys that are the same. You always learn new things. You always gain different insights. It's, they're called magic for a reason. It is a magical journey, very challenging as well, very scary at times. The specific journey that I write about in my book that occurred in 2017 was definitely a magical one. There wasn't, there's a big misconception that when you eat mushrooms, you're going to hallucinate. This word hallucinate, hallucinogenics, it doesn't really the way that it is. You don't see things that aren't there, first of all. And the amount that I took that day wasn't that much. So we were on the beach and we were walking on the beach. So, we can walk and talk and handle ourselves just fine. Um, it's just a very strong mood lifter. It floods your body with euphoria. So it's much more of a body sensation, much more of a joyous feeling that just overcomes your body. There is a lot of color enhancement. So everything that's already there just becomes very bright. It was a sunny day on the beach, so the beach was very, very blue, very bright. And I actually had lost color vision during this time. It's kind of a little bit of a technical, long story, but my depression caused me to sort of lose color, vision. So my world kind of became gray that I didn't realize until after, during the journey and then afterwards. But during this journey from that gray world that I was seeing, everything turned bright, bright blue. The ocean was bright, bright, bright blue. And I was really struck by that. You know, I did some research into that on why that is and what happens in the visual cortex during extreme cases of depression, um, bipolar, things like that. Sometimes you lose vision, you know. So, you know, it's a euphoria, a joyous feeling, and a color enhancement, a slowing down of time, a slowing down of thinking of the analytical brain, your consciousness sort of sliding out of your mind and into your body. Same thing that yoga meditation does. It's really just kind of a shortcut to that. It forces your brain to get into this default mode network absent state. So when we're going through our daily life, there's a section of our a network in our brain called the default mode network, and that's sort of the manager within us that's just making sure things get done, and we don't notice things outside that because we're always kind of thinking into the future. We're always thinking like 5 minutes ahead. You know, we're not really living in the present, so it kind of traps you into that present moment. When you're in that present moment, because of the neurological activity that happens in the brain, then you notice more things, you know. So it's not like you don't see things, you see things that aren't there. You just happen to be present. And so you're noticing all of the millions of aspects of existence that we never really see, you know. So all of these things that just appear to you, and it could seem like, oh, that it just appeared, some sort of hallucination, but it's just you're slowing down your brain, really, you know. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, it's a little bit complicated why that is, but that's how I would describe it. A very joyous feeling of euphoria. Yes. Yeah, we had actually done some mushrooms previously, like I mentioned in my 20s. Me and him did them probably 2 or 3 times, I think, back then. And those were really amazing, magical experiences. We were out in the desert, I believe 2 times, and it was, yeah, absolutely magical. You know, in the desert, stars lit up across the sky and shooting stars and just magical, magical. So we had dabbled in that before. We're the only ones in my family. The rest of my family has never nor would ever do it. So with with him, yes, I had done it, but it had been a long time, so it wasn't really something we talked about that much anymore. Yes. No, I'm still working on it. I'm actually back in Oaxaca now. I moved here actually, so I am continuing the documentary. I'm opening psychedelic retreats and workshops down here. Going to start writing a second book as well, a follow up to Taking Back My Mind. And so the documentary is continuing. It's a documentary about my entire journey, um, and it's in different segments. You know, so the first segment of it was we started about 3 years ago in the mountains here in Oaxaca with the local Mazatec Indians, which is where the origin of mushrooms are for Westerners are here in these mountains. So we did spent about a month here filming our journey, talking to locals, talking to the local Mazatec. And then about 9 months ago, me and my business partner went to Tepoztlan, just outside Mexico City, to a 5-MeO DMT retreat. So DMT is a different psychedelic molecule that has really got my attention, and I've been experimenting with that. Very, very powerful. So we spent a few weeks down there filming our DMT journey. So that's going to be part of the story as well. And then now I'm back here to continue that, and then I mean, it comes down to funding. You know, if I had the funding for it, it'd probably be done by now. But it's kind of good because the story keeps evolving, and now I have an opportunity to film again more things that are going on here in Oaxaca. So I hope to get it out in the next year or two. Getting close, getting close. I think it's just going to be called "Taking Back My Mind," the documentary. Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing workshops. So my workshops consist of pretty much the modality and protocol that I developed immediately when I ate these mushrooms and just out of my depression. I also stumbled across breath work, this breath work practice called the Wim Hof method, very powerful. It combines deep breathing with cold exposure, um, a philosophy called Stoic philosophy, and the psychedelics, of course. And so I developed a morning routine that I continue doing to this day, where I get up in the morning and I'll do yoga, meditation, this breath work, and jump into an ice bath. The effects of that are just absolutely miraculous. Just as powerful as the psychedelics. For me, it's maintenance because the psychedelics you can't do every day. You can't always do that. So that's more of a once in a few months type of thing. But this practice is a daily practice for me. This is a way for me to tap into that same state of mind, that same flow state that we have in the brain on a daily basis to keep me at that level of that high level of presence. So my workshops combine all these things. Um, I have been adding microdoses of psilocybin, so very small amounts of subperceptual amount of psilocybin. Um, and then I take people through the whole practice of yoga, meditation, breath work. And when we have access to cold water, then we jump into cold plunge. I gathered a team of some very good friends and spiritual brothers and sisters of mine, and I'm a meditation teacher, yoga teacher, and so we are a small group doing these workshops. We've been doing it for the past year in San Diego, and then I just did a multi-day retreat in Yosemite, and absolutely incredibly, just blowing it out of the water. People are loving it. They're addicted to it. They keep coming back, asking for more. And really, I don't, I mean, we're changing lives. After just one workshop, there's many people that have resolved a lot of physical ailments that they've had, most definitely mental, improve their mental state of mind. And it's a huge success. So that's the workshops I have been doing, and then now I am building a multi-day retreat here in Oaxaca, where we will do that exact thing, but we will also incorporate a ceremony day with a stronger psychedelic experience, where they can go into that deep state like I had on that day in 2017. So it'll be about a 5-day retreat where they get everything and some other things like local cooking classes. There's little treks into the forest where you can go and pick your own mushrooms. Um, just a really surreal experience in a very mystical, spiritual place. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm trying to run the first one in a few months, so hopefully at the end of August. And then we are also going to schedule the first big official one at the end of October to coincide with Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, here in Oaxaca. It's the biggest festival for the Day of the Dead in the world. Very cultural, very incredible experience. So that's definitely our focus to kick off this whole workshop and retreat, which I call Ascension. So the Ascension workshop will kick off end of October, about the 25th of October. Yeah, right. Yep. Everything's on my website, takingbackmymind.com. The book's name is Taking Back My Mind. If people are watching the video, this is the book. So it's called Taking Back My Mind, My Journey Out of Depression with Psilocybin Mushrooms. And the website is the title of the book, takingbackmymind.com, and all my information there. I have all the social links, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can choose your favorite social to follow me. And then on the website, I have a blog, I have a podcast. This podcast will be on the podcast tab, and then I have an events tab where all my upcoming events are. So that's the one-stop shop for everything about me. Yeah, sure is. It sure is. It's anything you want to ask. Yeah, I mean, I can go on and on about everything, the science, the history. My book is really uh, an, a kind of a re-education on psychedelics. So I wanted to tell my story so that people understand what happened that day. And I was so blown away by it that I really dove into the research. I wanted to find out what happened in my brain. So I spent the last 4 years researching and really learning how these things work. So I contain a lot of science in there for people to understand what's happening. I have a chapter on the history of psychedelics so people again understand why they're illegal, which has nothing to do with health. 100% has to do with politics in the era, back in the 60s. So we can start to dispel these ubiquitous misconceptions surrounding psychedelics because none of it is true. So, well, that they're harmful for one. I mean, they can be harmful if taken in the wrong environment, in the wrong context. But the psychedelics in and of themselves are not toxic. Many people think that psilocybin is a poison, and that is not true. So the biggest misconception is that they are inherently harmful to our health, that they are toxic in some way. Um, One of the biggest misconceptions behind that, and one of the facts surrounding, especially LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, is that it's not even possible to die off it. They don't even know a known overdose amount because nobody in human history has ever died from LSD or psilocybin, ever. Not one person. So that's probably the biggest misconception right there, where we live in a society where we drink alcohol like it's no big deal, and 3 million people a year die in the U.S. alone from that. We don't question that though. So, that I mean that's just the biggest misconception there, but there's many, many, many to go along with that. So that's what that's why I'm really outspoken about this is people need to understand that that's pretty important. we're caffeine kills more people. Advil, an aspirin in your cabinet is much more dangerous than any amount of psilocybin you're going to eat. Um, and this is just hardcore science. Yeah. Yeah, well, the mushrooms have been, they've emerged and been suppressed and emerged and suppressed throughout history. It is harder to control a society with an open mind. So that's been the story of specifically mushrooms throughout history. They've always been a part of the culture here in Mexico, especially in these mountains in Oaxaca. The ancient Aztecs used to call the mushroom flesh of the gods. They would have these ceremonies of these mushrooms and have these grand visions, visions of transcendence, visions of God, um, which there's a lot of recent research suggesting that the entire idea of God and the entire religions themselves were sparked from these visions from our ancient ancestors eating these mushrooms and having these visions and this feeling of God, because that is what it is. When you have a very, very strong psychedelic experience, it's a oneness with the universe. I can't say it's a direct experience of God, you know. And so you go back in time, go back history, go back to the Spanish Inquisition. This is not good for an organized religion, an organized religion like Christianity, where they don't want you to have the direct experience of God. They want to tell you who God is. So during the Spanish Inquisition, of course, people were burned at the stake alive for taking these mushrooms and having their own experience with God. So, again, it was pushed underground. And then it was since those days, it was kept absolutely secret for obvious reasons. Nobody wanted to be burned at the stake. So that continued for thousands of years up until in the 1950s. Uh, a banker named Gordon Wasson, 1953, had heard about these mushrooms that cause strange visions, and he was vice president of J.P. Morgan, as well. So he was an amateur mycologist, and he was very interested in mushrooms. He heard about these mushrooms in these mountains in Oaxaca, and so he came out to look for the mushroom, and he found the mushroom. He found tracked down the original curandera, original shaman woman's mountains that was holding what they called baledas, which is these ceremonies, and found her and wanted to experience that. He was the first Western Robert Hunter, the Grateful Dead. They came down to Mexico because they read that article. They were very interested, and so they came down, ate these mushrooms with Maria Sabina, had these grand visions. That led to all the music that we know of the '60s, um, and that just blossomed from there. And then more and more people started coming down, and eventually, there's a whole influx of hippies from those days coming down and just overrunning the mountains up here. It actually became a problem. Maria Sabina was ostracized. She was actually run out of town, and she was even jailed because she had let the secret out, the secret that they had kept secret for thousands of years, um, leaked out into this Time magazine article. That created the '60s. The '60s created the counterculture. At the same time, there was research with LSD going on in the 40s and 50s, very successfully treating alcoholism, treating a lot of mental health issues, depression, things like that, for about 2 decades in places like UCLA and Harvard, very prestigious universities, was not illegal because they had just come on the scene. Albert Hoffman synthesized LSD. Um, Back in 1943. And so the scientists were very interested in this molecule, that such a small amount would have such a profound effect on the mind. Um, then the CIA got a hold of LSD. They wanted to see if it could be used as a mind control weapon, as if it can be weaponized somehow, because we were in tensions with Southeast Asia at the time. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. It's pretty insane. And it's really fascinating. That's really what happened. And so our policy at the time, we were involved in Vietnam. All this music came out. All the music was about anti-war music, what we know as counterculture. Then the LSD sort of leaked out of the lab. A few people like Ken Kesey, Robert Hunter from Grateful Dead started handing out thousands of tablets of acid to the youth of America in the streets of San Francisco. Then thousands of these kids that were taking LSD were having these euphoric, incredible, magical experiences. In the midst of these experiences, they realized, hey, wait a minute, it's not. Why are we going to Vietnam to kill Vietnamese people? It's not right. So then they were refusing to go to Vietnam. And so that's the history that we know of Vietnam, right? This was a problem for the administration. After 10 years that the CIA was weaponized it and they realized it can't be weaponized, that it's only causing love and music, it was a real problem for them. And Nixon decided, okay, this is a problem. We're going to have to make it illegal. That's why it's illegal. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm doing here. That's why I had to move to Mexico, clear my mind. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So that I include that history in the book. I think it's very important to understand because a lot of people don't know why they're illegal, so they think, well, it's illegal, it must be bad for you. Unfortunately, our health is not necessarily what the government uh, cares about that much. Right. Kurt's Castle. Hmm. Yes. Hmm. Exactly. Hmm. I have not. Yeah, I bet. I bet. I bet. Right. 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 That's probably the best way to watch. Yeah. Right. The Wizard of Oz. Hmm. Right. Which, so this is a strawberry puree shake that they make here in Oaxaca. There's so much fruit here and so much good food and drinks. Um, so I'm at a hotel at the co-working space, and they have these delicious drinks here. Refreshing. Mm. Oh yeah, it's amazing. Exactly. Exactly. Right. No, it's amazing. It's really amazing down here. Yeah. Yeah, so that that involves all the other aspects of the workshops that I'm teaching, for example. So breath work is a big part of my life. I do it every day. Of course, being active and exercising, nature is really healing in itself. Just being out in nature. There's a lot of recent scientific studies showing the benefits of simply just like being barefoot on the sand or barefoot in the soil or being around trees, for example. They did a study in Japan where they took two groups of people and one were exposed to just walking in a forest and their cortisol levels and stress levels were lower than the group that did not, the group that was in the city. Um, so it's very applicable, practical exercises and things like this that I really advocate for to keep. Uh, oh, hello, hello. Yes, hello. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, I've really this really catapulted me into the health world in general. So I always advocate being healthy, spending as much time as you can out in nature. Um, More specifically, yoga, meditation, breath work, and cold exposure are extremely powerful practices that if you incorporate into your daily life, you really see a 10x effect on your physical health, which then affects your mental health. And then it is a cycle. If you're in a better mental space, then you're going to be more motivated to improve your physical health. And then your physical health is going to improve your mental health because you're having running through your body. And, it turns into just kind of an upward spiral. We live in a physical world. There's consequences to everything. We know a downward spiral very well, where we get into these ruts and we this negative thinking, and we just kind of go down these spirals. That can be reversed as well. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. So when you can learn how to incorporate these things in your life, you notice your health improving every day, then you're more motivated to keep doing it. And so you can really turn that ship around and then start this upward swing into an upward cycle, an upward spiral of health. And so um, it all comes down to your mental state, to your consciousness, to where you are. And that's why meditation is so important. That's why breath work is so important. Breath work literally slows down your thinking, your prefrontal cortex that causes all the problems, all the thinking. We can mechanically slow that down through breath, you know. Um, so those are the other aspects that I teach people is, you know, if you want to get out of your head, if you want to stop worrying so much, stop stressing so much, you can't think your way out of it. You can't think your way out of a thinking brain. It doesn't work that way. So you have to, exactly, you're right. You just, you know, the sand's going to keep falling in, and that's how it works. So you have to short circuit it. You have to use your body to get out of your mind. And we understand these mechanisms pretty well now. And so that's what I teach is use your body, use your physiology to elevate your psychology. And then you can get on that upward spiral of mental, spiritual, physical health. You know, very important. You cannot have you can't be in your peak mental state if you're in poor physical health. You need to be, you know, improve your physical health to be in that improved mental state as well. So it's not just a one quick fix. If there's no, you know, there's no nothing you're going to read that's just going to get you out of that. You have to attack it from all levels: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. And it's not easy. You know, it's a lot of work. That's why I wrote the book. My book isn't like a quick answer that, okay, so I get it now, I'm going to do that. And I go into the science and how to do these things, but it takes daily work. It's you know, it's a dedication. I mean, it's the most important part of my life. Like my on my to-do list is first thing in the morning is yoga, meditation, breath work. We're talking an hour and a half of this stuff. It's the most important thing there is. Everything else is second, you know. So it's not easy, and it takes extreme dedication. And you know, unfortunately, it's too difficult for a lot of people to jump into, but um, that's just the way it is, you know. Yeah, we live in a society that that's what people want, and they've been led to believe that there's a pill for everything. You know, we're living a pill a day type of system. You know, especially our medical system is literally pills, and they just pop more and more pills. That's where I was when I was very depressed. Is they just kept giving me more pills, and then this pill to cover up this pill, and this pill for my insomnia, and this pill for my anxiety. And pretty soon I was on like 8 to 10 pills a day, and nothing was working. And I was getting worse. And those side effects were making everything 10 times worse, you know? So we do live in a society that is sort of led to believe that there are easy answers, that we can just go to the doctor and get this pill. And, you know, as being a mental epidemic in the statistics and the suicide rates, it's not working. The opioid crisis, you know, this is not working. And we have all the answers. I believe we have all the solutions, that we always have had them. And it is in nature. It is in these modalities. It is in breath. It is in medicine. Always been a part of our culture that were made illegal for. It really starts with the re-education of everything. I mean, I can pretty much flat out say that most things that people have learned is absolutely false about anything. So it's a mass re-education. One of the main reasons I wrote the book. You know, it's just to cover psychedelics and sort of health in general, for what I believe the truth to be. You know, and that's where it starts is to understand the truth and understand. Yeah. Hmm. Yes. Right. Right. You know, it's pretty obvious. I mean, again, antidepressant market is about a 15 billion a year dollar market, and that amount keeps growing and keeps growing. So does the mental health epidemic. So it's not working. It's not working. You know, if it was working, we'd see the numbers, you know, falling, but they're not. They're not, and they haven't been for 10, 15 years. So it's time to wake up. It's time to a new approach. You know, that is working. of course. There's by now there's thousands of cases like mine. I'm one person whose life was saved by psilocybin. There's thousands of cases like mine now, and they're happening every single day. I read news stories every single day, you know. So this is happening. This is true. This is real. And I really want people to understand that this is real. You know? Another aspect to this is we're very subconscious beings. Our beliefs are very ingrained in us. It's hard to change somebody's mind about something, even when they see it right in front of their own eyes. I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people who are depressed and they just say, "Oh, I'm having issues, this and that." And I literally say, psilocybin got me out of it in 24 hours. But they just can't connect it. They can't understand that that can happen to them. They don't believe it's real, even though they watched me go through it, even though they know all this. Can't believe it's real. So it's really embedded in there. It's very difficult to change the mind, but it's just going to have to just keep hammering it in there, hammering it in there. You know, it is real. This is real. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. 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 You as well. Um, Stay tuned for Taking Back My Mind, the documentary. Stay tuned for the workshops. Stay tuned for the retreats, slated for end of August and end of October in Oaxaca, Mexico. Come down and spend 5 days in the mountains with me and my stellar crew of spiritual healers and completely cleanse your mind and your body and your spirit of all the things that are dragging you down and return a completely new person. It will be a experience you will never forget and will definitely change your life. Yeah. There you go. That's good, man. That's good. You can roll the R. You can kind of roll the R. Yeah. There we go. Nice. Nice. Awesome. Is a hot dog in a bun a sandwich? No, it's not. That's more of a roll. And I don't really like hot dogs. I do like sandwiches though. That's a good question. Sounds great. Thank you for having me on. It was an honor. Absolutely. Great. That's my mission. You too. Thank you and take care. Have a good evening. Take care. Bye.